Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
So things that I look at in an email marketing system. One is I look at the email builder, like how easy is it to use? I also look at like just system usability in general. How is it getting from point A to point B in there? I look at what type of segmentation features it offers. I also look at automation, like what kinds of automation features does it have? And for some people, that's not going to matter. But if you want to send an email automatically because somebody filled out a form, say, or if you want to send out a series of emails, you're going to need to have some type of automation there. I also look at how well it integrates with other systems because that can be a big deal. I like to make it so it's integrated and it doesn't take as much time. Well, if it doesn't fit the bill, then it doesn't work. I look at reporting because reporting is a big deal to me. And then, of course, it has to make those RSS feed emails I talked about earlier. And then last but not least, pricing.
You're listening to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Today's episode is a 2-for-1 deal comparing two popular email marketing systems, Mailerlite and MailChimp. My guest, Monica Pitts, is here to help us understand why we need to be using email marketing in the first place, what features we're looking for in an email system, and how these two compare. Is there a winner? Listen to find out. I know I made my choice, and Monica has too, and we're sharing candidly and fairly, and you'll hear our perspectives, preferences, and recommendations in this episode. As a bonus, Monica also shares recommendations on what you can do with your email marketing system and why you don't want to be using your personal email to do any of this. Monica is the Chief Creative Officer of May Create Design, a web design and online marketing consulting agency founded in 2005. Trained in science and design, Monica is a matchmaker of form and function and thrives when solving communication challenges through technology. She lives in Columbia, Missouri with her husband, kiddos, and 2 pups. She's an audiobook junkie, aerialist, yogi, runner, and crafter who loves traveling and playing in the dirt. One thing I want to highlight is that Monica provides a thorough list of what to look for in an email system. You can apply this list to any system you're considering. There are many amazing email marketing systems out there like ActiveCampaign, Constant Contact, HubSpot, Aweber, Entreport, and many others that combine email and other features. Monica specifically recommends Sendinblue and Emma as options to consider. Based on my clients and connections, I noticed how popular Mailerlite and MailChimp are, especially when you're first starting out and when you're on a budget. So I thought they would be a great place to start. After listening to this conversation, if you feel like you need another conversation to process this, book a free connection call with me. I can start the assessment of where you're at and then recommend your best options, whether it be a strategy session with me or a referral to my preferred consultants. Go to positivelyproductive.com/call to book a time that works for you. Welcome, Monica Pitts, to the Positively Living podcast. I'm so excited to talk about email marketing systems today.
I love to geek out over systems, so I'm super pumped to be able to talk about them too in an environment where it's safe.
I know.
People's eyes aren't going to glaze over and just roll back in their head.
Oh no, we're going to have some serious fun while we're geeking out. If it's not science, it's going to be tech, and all of it is to such an important end, which is how can we be happier and more efficient and more productive and live a better life as a result of this fabulous technology.
Yes.
Okay, so before we get into it, would you please share a bit about yourself, who you help, and what lights you up? What do you love to do?
So my core role in life as a professional, I guess, would be helping people have websites that really play a part in growing their business. Not just a website that's like an online brochure, but I want a website that like helps you solve problems
Mm.
and that actually integrates into your business and makes it run better. So I get super jazzed whenever I have a challenge that I get to solve that I have the skills to solve. So that is one thing that totally lights me up. And as part of building websites, that's where the email marketing rolls in because everything has to touch and work together or else it stinks because it's hard and you have to do extra steps, which means you won't do it. And that is also bad. So there you go.
So there you go. And you've really just leaned right into the kickoff for this conversation is let's talk a bit about email marketing systems and why we're using them. What's the point of them? What are we trying to accomplish with them in the first place before we even worry about which one should we choose?
So, with my clients, most of the time we're setting up an email marketing system for them that is going to allow them to easily add people to their lists from their website. And the other thing that we do a lot of is creating what I call RSS emails. So, whenever you add a blog post to your site, it puts it into this very simple feed, which is called an RSS feed. And you can actually pull that content from your website and put it in an email and make the email send automatically using certain different systems, which is a huge time saver for people because then you just have to regularly update your blog and then the email automatically sends for you. It's like magic.
Like you had to sing it, magic. Yeah. Like anytime it's that good, you have to sing it. That does sound like magic. That sounds amazeballs is what that sounds like. Okay.
It is.
So yeah, so this is not just, hey, reach out to your people and let them know what's going on, but this is like next level, like getting this automated and
Yeah.
automation. That's huge for saving time and also making sure that you're getting the information where it needs to go so it doesn't slip through the cracks.
Yes, because a lot of the times either it doesn't get on the website or it doesn't get in an email. Like one of the two things happen. People might do a printed newsletter and then it doesn't ever get into the website and then it doesn't ever go out in email. And I'm like, but all that stuff should be every which way. Like it should, people are going to find it in the place that's most comfortable for them. And so we need to put it in these different homes where people can find it. So we always try to make it where you're updating your website with the content that needs to be told to your audience. And then that information goes into an email and sends out.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point in there to not only have proper distribution of information, but in a way that allows your audience to access it in their preferred way.
Because a lot of people put a lot of stuff out on, say, Facebook. And I mean, I use Facebook, but I am not out there a lot because it sucks me in. It's like a time vacuum. If you sent it to me in a text or an email, I'd get it and I'd always see it. But people are like, well, didn't you check the Facebook group? And I'm like, no.
No.
So now I have like certain Facebook groups that I absolutely have to check like twice a day or else I don't get my information. And I'm frustrated and angry about that. And we don't want to make our audiences feel like that. So let's communicate with them the way they want to be communicated with.
Yeah. And also, too, there's a difference between that active and passive thing in terms of the way that you can serve your audience. They're actively going to Facebook or Instagram. Listen, I play on Instagram and I love it there. And you know, I have a group there that we have the best time, but not everybody's going to go there for that information. And also, what happens if normally you do, but then life takes over? We were just talking about we've had snowstorms and COVID and, you know, like all kinds of things happening. But the one thing you consistently check is your email.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had so many instances where someone that I regularly follow has reminded me about something, whether it's an opportunity or a tip or something that I could be doing or a deadline that's happening that might benefit me. And I'm so grateful that I got that information in email because that was like out of my head, out of my mind. That was just not on the list. I wasn't going to catch it in whatever algorithm was playing on social media that day.
And I even am thankful for sales emails
Yeah.
more than occasionally because I get them and I'm like, oh, yes, I'll try out your new service. It's a free trial, of course. And I found some of my favorite things that way that really do help me on a day-to-day basis be more functional and more productive. And man, so thank you for your sales emails.
I love that. And I got to say, true confessions here. Okay. You ready? I am an 11th hour buyer because I like to think about it for a while. Let me think about it. So when someone's like, I got to think about it, I'm like, no problem. No, I totally get that. I'm like, I'm here when you're ready. But here's the thing is that then life takes over, right? And then you're thinking about it. You're thinking about it, but then life takes over and then you forget about it, or you're just waiting and you're seeing, and then they're like, by the way, this deadline is coming up. And you're like, oh, okay. And you're like, yeah, I really do want to do this. So it's a wonderful opportunity to be like, can I hit the pause button and can you help remind me?
Yes. And I think that there's a lot of businesses and nonprofits alike that are reluctant to send more than one email about the same topic, or they just really feel like they're bothering people. And man, it's just such a bummer because like one of the things that we help out a lot with our nonprofit clients is helping them run their year-end giving campaigns. My company May Create partners with our community foundation, and last year we supported 148 of our local nonprofits, and collectively they raised over, what was it, $1.8 million. So that was like huge, right? And I'm always telling these folks, you've got to send your emails. You got to send your emails. And they're like, oh, we'll send one. And I'm like, no. No. We have to send more than one. And I can't tell you how many donors I've heard from that are like, you have to send me more than one email because I'm busy. And I just like archive them or I delete them. And then I realize that I have until the end of the campaign to give. And that's why the last day of the campaign is honestly one of the biggest days of giving. It's because it's people waiting to the 11th hour. So people need to not be scared about sending the emails, but then also in the same token, they will just not send an email to anybody until they want something from them. And I feel like that's not a really great relationship. Like it's like the friend that always wants you to do the Mary Kay party, and you're like,
you haven't heard from them in forever and you're really excited and they DM you. And now it's like, oh, great to hear from you. And then I got one eyebrow up. I'm like, what do you want? And it is, yeah. Can we have a happy medium somewhere in there?
Yeah. So friends that are doing email marketing, if you feel like it's not working, it's because either you're not talking about things that your audience cares about, or you're only trying to sell them something in your emails, which you can't be friends with people if all you're doing is trying to get them to host your Mary Kay party for you. It just doesn't work.
So there's that consistency and that balance. And sometimes the word nurturing is used, right? But whatever it happens to be is that you're creating, nurturing, I think is a good word, a relationship where you're like, hey, this is what's going on and I want to share with you. I'd love for you to share with me. And this is how I'm trying to help you. And these are opportunities. I love what you said about, the sales opportunities or sometimes the freebies. It doesn't have to be all of one and not the other. I know sometimes that's a whole nother thing. We've had podcast episodes about this of, being scared to sell or, to share what you're doing. But ethical marketing is a brilliant thing. And it's giving your audience, your potential clients, agency to make that choice. Well, they can't make the choice if you don't share the information.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And they can't make the choice whether they're going to like you or not, or follow you or not, or believe you or in you or not, if you don't try to talk to them. And so that's why emails are so cool, because you can start a conversation. And I do love it when people respond to my emails. I'm like, this is so awesome.
I know. It's the best, whether it's just like a random answer to something like, did you pick a word of the year? Or it's like, what did you do recently that was like the same kind of issue that I had, or whatever it happens to be. Or sometimes someone will just reply and be like, that was hysterical. Thank you, because I'm a goofball. And whatever it happens to be, you're right, because you do get that response from time to time. And that there's that connection being made. Okay, so those are great reasons why we want to be doing this. And so it sounds ridiculous to say, but I'm still going to ask a question. Why are we not just, sending an email from like our regular email? We need an email system. Why?
Well, there's lots of reasons why. The first one being that you need to be tracking what's going on with your emails. And it's kind of like you're having a one sided conversation in these emails. You can't see somebody's facial expression. You don't know if they're listening or not unless you can see it. And so when you look over your email marketing data, then you can see, am I talking about things that people are interested in? What are the things they're most interested in? Can I talk more about that? Because what you're trying to do is deepen a relationship. So I think the data is a huge piece, but then also you have the time saving piece because man, who has time to build it and just click send? Like that means you have to have like budgeted for that. And what happens if you're sick that day or you had to take a meeting? Like then it just doesn't go out. So being able to plan in advance and write them and schedule them to send, that's magic, right? And you can put different plugins into your normal email that will let you do some of that stuff, but it's not the same.
Yeah, I think that there are definitely features, and we're going to get into that for sure, especially as we start comparing and contrasting. But there's this element of using a tool. This is the whole point of technology, right? Using the right tool that's going to be as efficient as possible for you. And yeah, there's an element of consistency that's super important for emails. Don't I know it? And I'm still working on that myself. But even more so, how about the fact that that efficiency everywhere we can find that also opens up space to do other things like working in our zone of genius, working with clients as opposed to working on sending the emails, things like that. So wherever you can create that space, that's going to be super value to you as a business owner.
And if you are sending out hundreds of emails from your normal email address, you are setting yourself up to be blocked and blacklisted. Like you can't do it. Like eventually your list will get big enough that servers will blacklist your domain, like the whole domain, and then people will not be able to see your website anymore or get any of your email. And when you get blacklisted, the really crappy part about that is all those emails that you sent or all the emails that people sent to you, they're gone. Like you're not going to get them. So you like created this black hole for yourself. And so that is one of the scary pieces too, is that if you're not doing it right, you can get flagged as a spammer basically, which we don't want that because we're not spamming people. We're having relationships.
Right. So setting it up on, and this is also another next level in terms of professionalism, right, for your business and doing it legitimately. These systems require your domain, and, it's a very important part to take that next step. And so one of the reasons why I think you and I had been chatting about the different kinds of tech we could use, and I know that we both have experience with Mailerlite and MailChimp. And I thought that was a great place to start. There are many other email systems out there, but especially when you're first starting, I think there are many reasons why these two are a great place to start. They also seem to be that kind of very commonly compared, Mailerlite and MailChimp. So what features are we looking for in an email system? Why are these two a good place to start and compare? And let's talk about what they've got going on, have in common, and what you think.
Yeah, I actually, to organize my thoughts for this and be able to put it together in a way that I could like regurgitate it intelligently, created a blog post about it. So if anybody is like, man, I want to see all these screenshots and I don't even know how many pages it is, 16 pages in my Google Doc of me comparing the two. Okay, so maybe I went a little overboard, but I just feel like you want to start with something that you can continue with for a while because switching systems over and over again is just really time consuming and you have to learn a new system, but it's not even as much about the learning a new system. It's like you've put this energy into using the one. It has your data, it has your automated emails in it, it has the stuff in it. And if you're going to switch, you got to go do that in all your in the next one. And we recently did that for my company, May Create. And I was like, good heavens, this is a very time consuming venture, but I am still happy with the decision to move over. And I looked at a lot of them. So I did want to mention two that I do like that we won't get into today.
Wonderful.
One is Sendinblue, which is a cool one because it does have like a built-in CRM and it also sends text messages, so that's pretty clever. And it has a real simple user interface. And that's what I really liked about it. And then the other one is Emma. Emma, Man, it recently got bought up by somebody. Can't remember who. Anyway, but that's like one of the first email marketing systems that I ever used. And I really do like the reporting features and I like the user interface in there. It's easy to use. I like it a lot, but I moved away from it because they don't do RSS generated emails and they charge by like the email that I send based on the package that I have chosen. So I was like, mirror. Not as excited about that. But anyway, so those are two really good ones that have an easy user interface that you can make all kinds of pretty stuff with.
Awesome.
The other two to look at. Okay, so things that I look at in an email marketing system. One is I look at the email builder, like how easy is it to use. I also look at like just system usability in general. How is it getting from point A to point B in there? I look at what type of segmentation features it offers because I am a segmenter and I like to make sure that it is fully featured that way. I also look at automation, like what kinds of automation features does it have? And for some people, that's not going to matter. But if you want to send an email automatically because somebody filled out a form, say, or if you want to send out a series of emails, you're going to need to have some type of automation there. Okay, so I also look at how well it integrates with other systems because that can be a big deal there. Like if it's not going to lighten your load, right? What did I say I like to do? I like to solve the problem. I like to make it so it's integrated and it doesn't take as much time. Well, if it doesn't fit the bill, then it doesn't work. I look at reporting because reporting is a big deal to me. And if the reporting is hard to use, then I'm going to be mad at it. And then, of course, it has to make those RSS feed emails I talked about earlier. And then last but not least, pricing. Like, what does it cost? Because if it's going to be ridiculously expensive, I also don't want to use it either.
Okay. That is an awesome list. So, and some of these are great questions to ask no matter what you're going into, whether you're going into the two we're talking about today or another one. You know, how easy it is to use. Does it feel intuitive to you when you go into the system, the usability, automation, if that matters to you, but also thinking in terms of it may matter to you in the future. So looking at the big picture, reporting, I like that one. And I love what you said. It's not just that there's reporting, but it's reporting that you can get in and be like, can I make sense of these stats or are they, simple enough for me to start with? And yeah, it's all well and good. You can have lots of data flying at you, but if you don't know what to do with it, or you can't match up someone who can help you do something with it, and you're just confused by it, it's almost like not having the feature.
And that's one of the reasons, that was one of the major reasons why I ended up getting so angry at MailChimp is
spoiler alert, there's a little bit of there was a breakup that happened.
MailChimp is literally going to write me like a hate letter after they read this, but it has some amazing features. And I have over 60 clients on MailChimp right now that I support on MailChimp. So it has its place, right?
Yes.
But for me, because I am always looking at the reporting, like the initial view of the reporting user interface is just overwhelming with information, so much stuff there. And then you click and dig deeper, which is fine. But also, when you get into those automated emails, if you use their new journeys feature, I literally cannot figure out where you find the data on those emails. Like I can't find it. I've looked everywhere. I Googled it and I can Google. I was going
to say, Monica, if you can't find it,
I don't understand where it lives. Like I've looked for it everywhere. Anyway, so eventually I was like, maybe I wasn't sending very many emails using the journey feature anyway, because they do have like their classic automations, which are for emails. And I am automating stuff for emails. So it made sense. But then I got scared too, because it's called classic. And what happens? Like, does that mean it's going to go away? Anyway, like, there's some like weird head trash over there. But yeah, so I got really frustrated with it in that way. Like in general, the user interface, you have to click a lot to get where you want to go. And I feel like, so I'm an iPhone user. I feel like I'm using an Android every time I get in there. It's like using someone else's microwave. like I'm sure I can heat up the food in it, but it's not like you're gonna have to think real hard.
Is there a minute button? How do I get this thing to start? And you're like, I am perfectly capable. Why am I? Yes, that's a great.
Yes,
that's a great.
So that's
example.
How I feel in MailChimp. But like I said, there are features that I do miss about MailChimp as well. So.
Okay. So before we get into that comparison and then those elements, and what your preference is and your experience now with Mailerlite. I want to just address very quickly in that list, there was the term segmentation. Can you expand on that just a little bit, please, why it matters and what we're doing with it?
Yes. So in my universe, like for my business, we have two main target audiences. We serve construction companies and we serve nonprofits. Well, I mean, they have a lot of the same core values, which that's why we can work with them both because we have those core values as a company. And so we really jive. But my construction friends are not interested in the same stuff that my nonprofit friends are interested in all the time, right? My nonprofit friends want to hear about donations and events and those types of things. And then my construction friends, they're really concerned about hiring most of the time and bringing in new employees. While we use the same techniques to help them, they don't think about it the same way. So I have a different conversation with each one of those audiences. So those audiences are segmented. And you can segment people way further down, right? Like you can get like mega segmented. I try not to because that just gets very confusing. But yeah, so it's important because your different types of people have different concerns, different reasons for buying, and sometimes even a different vocabulary. And so we want to talk to each person like they're the only person in the room. And you can't do that if you're sending everyone the same message.
Exactly. And if you have special things going on, or for example, I do a lot with gratitude practice and coaching it and having sort of special gratitude. I don't want to call them challenges. I'm not a fan of that word, but periodically throughout the year, I invite people in so that we can practice together and I coach it. And so that is something where my entire group is not interested. It's those who signed up to be part of the Positively Grateful series and want to come in and practice it. They want the updates. Now, it might be that some of the main group would be like, no, I want in. So I may send them one message that says, hey, I'm doing this again. If you want in, let me know. And then they become part of that segmented group. And then I can send them those updates. And it's a way to say, okay, I'm going to update people in general, but not basically spam them about something they're not interested in. And I think that's such an important courtesy.
Yes, I have at times actually like at one point I'm like, hey, I'm going to spend 6 months just talking about marketing plans. And I didn't want to turn off the rest of my audience, but the main purpose was marketing plans. That's what we're going to talk about. And so first I sent out an email and I was like, hey, I'm going to talk a whole bunch about marketing plans over the next 6 months. And if you're not interested, you don't have to leave the email list. You can just choose not to hear about marketing plans. And I'll just send you the information that isn't about marketing plans. And so it was nice because then I did have people that opted out of hearing about marketing plans because they didn't want to hear about it. Okay, cool. But I didn't lose them as part of my audience. They just chose not to get those emails, which is cool. Let them go.
Exactly. But they don't have to go completely. I love that.
Mhm.
Okay. So thank you. I just wanted to be very clear about segmentation. We hear about it sometimes, and it can be used in a very, very simple fashion. I mean, segmentation can be as simple as having two groups, just like you said. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it can be very useful. Now, moving forward, what was going on? What are, some of the comparisons that you saw and what made you shift from MailChimp to Mailerlite?
I didn't use MailChimp every day until my MailChimp making magician moved on and took another job. And so at that point, I was like, well, I don't really have anybody else on staff who I can just like push this over to that wasn't in anyone else's skill set at the time. And so then it became my responsibility. And I would get so frustrated with certain things. And I was like, has this been happening the whole time? Has it been this way always? Like, how did no one ever complain to me? And then I got into this tangent with my staff and I was like, look, people, you have to complain sometimes because otherwise I don't know what needs to be fixed. And clearly this needed to be fixed. And I didn't even know. Anyway, so yeah, so that was pretty much like spurring the motivation there. And also, we were doing more email marketing than we had ever done before for our company because we weren't able to connect the same way that we were before COVID. And so I'm like, well, I've got this tool, let's use it. And then I was like, I'm kind of mad at this tool. So I did upgrade to like not their most expensive plan, but I was paying at least $150 a month for the service. And I thought that was going to fix it, but still it didn't necessarily fix it. So I started on a journey and I reviewed, I can't tell you how many different email marketing systems. I don't even know. I would just Google search for them, and other people on my staff, people on Facebook would be like, try these out. I'm like, okay. And so I signed up for all the free trials, and I just went in and spent like an hour in it trying to do the things that I wanted to do, and then reported back on whether I thought it was easy or hard or whatever. And so I ended up liking Mailerlite the most based on its user interface, set of technology, like what it can do for me, what its functionality is. And then two, its price is awesome because now I pay $30 a month.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sweet. But it doesn't have, like, I can't post to social media through it. I can't run a social ad through it, but I wasn't using any of that stuff in MailChimp anyway. Like, it doesn't have like this robust image editor in it like MailChimp does, but I wasn't using it anyway. I use Canva. So I was okay stripping out those extra things to get a user interface that was simpler and easier to use.
I have to say, when I first looked at MailChimp and Mailerlite, and I went to those two because they were probably most commonly recommended among my peer group, if you will. And I think in part because when you first start out, pricing, certainly is a concern. And you don't want to jump right to one of the more robust email systems until you know what you need. So that is one of the benefits, I think, with both of them, is that you can start with a free plan and you can do a lot. And I did feel like Mailerlite had a robust collection of features for a free plan.
Yeah, it really does. It has a robust collection of features, and it does have a free plan. And let me scroll down and I shall tell you how many subscribers you get. I want to say it's 1,000.
It's 1,000.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's enough getting started. So comparatively, you can schedule your emails in the free Mailerlite plan. You can't do that in MailChimp. And so that is a big bummer. You can schedule your RSS emails in MailChimp for free. Okay. That's totally fine. And it will do that all for free, but you can't build a one-off email campaign and schedule it. So I have a lot of clients that have to go to the paid version because they want to be able to schedule their emails, which, especially if you're doing events, is super important.
Yeah. And the whole point of planning ahead, right? And being able to now, and it's not that you can't have them ready to go. And then you remind yourself and you go in and you trigger the send. But the more you're trying to automate, the more important having a scheduling feature is.
Yeah. It gives you the peace of mind. You're like, I did this, I checked the box, now I can move on.
Exactly.
It does also. So in MailChimp, you can only have one audience on the free account, but you can use all their other audience features. With the segmentation in Mailerlite, you get groups and segments. And in MailChimp, you get audiences, groups, tags, and segments. So you can see how much more robust it is. Like when I lost tags in the transition, so there are no tags, I felt like I just took out my silverware drawer divider and just dumped it into the drawer. That's what I felt like happened to my audience. Because while I still kept them in their nonprofit and construction groups, I didn't know who had downloaded what. I didn't have all that extra information in. So I ended up using user fields in Mailerlite to do the tagging, so to speak, that you would normally do in MailChimp with tags. So I have like a cutlery, right? To use the spoon example, there's a cutlery user field, and inside of it, it's going to say spoon, fork, or knife. Okay, good. Now I can create a segment with that information. But yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? They're not there anymore. And I didn't want to have a billion groups, because when you're setting up your email initially, you want it to be like as clean as possible. You don't want 500 different things. You'll never find them back. I mean, okay, you might find them, but it's not as easy to use. So
it's like, we do have this tendency. I think I've noticed it in organizing when you have filing systems, and there's this inclination to really drill down and have all these different files. And it's like, okay, so you have the different car insurances for everyone in the house. And it's like, you can have a folder that says car insurance.
Yes.
And that's enough. And because the whole point of this is to be able to, any kind of organizing, it's to access the information, it's to get back to it. So to your point, if you get crazy with too many groups, and if you go, excessive on that end, trying to find what you need again later, it's just not going to happen. I will say I appreciate Mailerlite's option to click on a bunch of groups if you want to, send to everyone or send to a select set of them. But again, I think this is it's just proceeding with caution and intentionality, right?
Yeah. So now in my subscribers, the user fields are bloated because there's lots and lots of user fields with my subscribers because I had to replace all that information that was once in tags in all the user fields. But that's okay because I don't click and open up everybody's subscriber data every single day. But what I do look at is the groups and I use them all the time. So, and I use segments for things that can come and go. But in MailerLite, when you're doing your automations or if you're adding people to the system when they sign up and you want to segment them, then you can't put them into segments. You have to put them into groups. So it segments them into groups, not segments. The segments are just like a filter is all they are. They're just filtering based on information that already exists. So if you were to take them out of the segment, and you don't have the silverware drawer divider, then they're just going in the silverware drawer, all of them back together. Even though they're spoons, forks, and knives, they're all going back in the drawer. And I didn't know that until I did it. And then I was like, boo, what have I done? Because I thought, well, they're all in a group and I don't need that group anymore. So I'll just save it as a segment. And then I deleted the group. Well, that group was the only thing that tied them together. And then my segment had 0 people in it. And I was like, oh, but I kind of wanted to know. Anyway.
Lessons learned. Thank you. Thank you for sharing these lessons learned. So in all of this, segments, groups, tags, things like that, the bottom line is that both of them have very similar features, but then I think it's going to come down to what it is that you're really looking for in terms of the functionality for you and the type of messaging you're doing, what kind of automation you're looking for.
Yeah. And just realize that you can use the custom user fields in MailerLite to do more segmenting of your audience, but you're going to have to just think about it in advance, right? And realize that that's what it's going to be used for. So you're going to have to problem solve through that. But for most people, when they start email marketing, they don't need all that extra stuff. It actually just kind of clutters it and you forget what you used it for. And organization is only good if you have a clue where you put stuff, right? So if you don't remember, then yay.
The other thing you mentioned, was how well does it play with others? And I have to say that I had a little hesitancy, especially because I think MailerLite was sort of the new kid on the block. MailChimp had been around forever. And so I saw a lot of integration with MailChimp, less so with MailerLite. Are you still seeing that, or is it getting better? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that if integration is something that you need, then you should definitely look at MailerLite because, not MailerLite, I'm sorry, MailChimp, because MailChimp is integratable to the nth degree. Like I, at one point, had a client that needed 2 different softwares to talk to one another. They needed their website to talk to their CRM, and their website didn't naturally talk to their CRM. And MailChimp talked to both. And so I used MailChimp as a pass-through communicator.
Wow.
To like talk back and forth, which was awesome. Like it worked really good and it was super robust in that way. And if it's going to save you time because it is integrated, then man, that's what you're trying to do, right? That's why you're doing this. So I feel like in that way, it is so powerful in the ways that it integrates. Like right now with my current website, so I have a WordPress website and I use my forms plugin is called Formidable Forms. It doesn't natively talk to MailerLite. So I have to use Zapier to make them talk back and forth and do what I want them to do. But I was already using Zapier because I don't like the MailChimp reporting. And so I was creating my own reporting spreadsheets in a Google Sheet, right?
There you go.
So then I switched over to Airtable. And so I was still zapping it back and forth. Anyway, so I got Zappy. Now I just have one more Zap in the lineup, right? So when people sign up on my website, it zaps it into MailerLite and then it zaps it into my Airtable reporting tool. So if you can use Zapier, then you can pretty much connect it to most anything, but that's just one more spot and one more thing that you have to set up and one more thing that you have to edit. one more thing you have to troubleshoot when stuff isn't working.
True. So, it's a decision. It's an informed choice to say, but you know what? I like for me, there's something about Mailerlite and how easy it was for me to use the elements of it that I preferred. And it
Yeah.
felt better for me. So I was able to use it better. When I go into MailChimp, it's not quite as bad as when I go into Asana and look around and go, what? And then run the other way. And again, no offense to either of them. I'm talking about my impressions. And that's the whole point of this, is to figure out the right platforms for you. And so Mailerlite made sense to me. So I was like, well, I'm going to take a chance on the integration issues. And so far, I've noticed there has been a growth. Like I use Member Vault for my products, and there is an integration. I haven't had an issue there. And, like you said, Zapier is certainly an option. You just have to figure out where you want to take the extra steps versus where you need to have things as seamless and as easy as possible. And in your main list that you gave us, integrations is one of those. So think about that. As you're thinking about an email system, it's not just about the messaging, but it's about the integration too.
Yes. And I think on the messaging front, if you are less creative, I don't want to say creative because people are creative like in all different ways, but maybe less graphically minded, I do appreciate all of the different content blocks that are offered in Mailerlite. There are so many content blocks. And so you can really build a nice looking email without having to think too hard about it because it's kind of fill in the blank. You can build really nice looking emails with MailChimp, but they don't have all those pre-formatted content blocks for you. They have content blocks. They're just not as fancy as the ones in MailerLite. Now, as someone who customizes everything to the nth degree, though, I find myself starting with this pretty MailerLite block that I think I'm going to use. And then by the time I'm done, I'm like, I can't modify it enough. I can't. And then I end up getting out like a custom HTML block and like coding stuff in it. But but I do think it's pretty sweet. And so that's something to note.
I would agree. So it's an interesting point about design. Overall, with the content blocks, MailerLite can help you create a beautiful design of the overall email very easily without having to know design, if you will. I mean, you can start with like, okay, how do I put something together? And it's just a drag and drop. That's very simple. But the editing of the images is very limited. Like you can click on edit and it'll be like, you want to crop this or what? I'm like, no.
Yes.
But as you said, if you are already doing editing someplace else, I also use Canva. It's a non-issue.
Yeah. So how many times, and I don't know if you've ever done this before, but okay, so there's the one block that has this image in the background and a button in the forefront. And that image has like this gray or black screen over the top of it. So you can really read the words on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I am constantly putting that block in and thinking that if I put my image in, it'll have like that black screen over the top of it. And then I click, I'm like, I'll just edit this image. And then the only things that I can do over my image are like add starbursts and waves and junk. And I'm like, wait a second, where's my like add black over the top of this option? Well, there isn't that option. And then I have to pull it into Canva and I have to edit it in Canva. And I'm like, and why do I keep doing that on repeat? It doesn't.
It's like you keep forgetting it each and every time. Yeah. So again, they're different elements. So it comes back to what's more important to you to be able to get in there and pull these blocks together and boom, you have this great looking email and you're not so concerned with the images, or it's not even that. You can have beautiful images in there. It's just a matter of you're not going to be able to modify them right in there. You're going to have to go outside, bring in a new image. That's the elements there. If integration is a concern, then it looks like MailChimp is definitely going to win out. But then you have to compare it to all of those other features. Is there anything else that we need to know as we're wrapping up here to make our decision on the two?
I, of course, am concerned with the functionality of the RSS feed emails that I've talked about like ad nauseum in our conversation today. And I do have to say that in the free package, right, you can do them in MailChimp, and also MailChimp is just highly, highly customizable. Like if you have a little bit of bravery and a little bit of HTML or CSS knowledge, and it's very well documented in their help section, you can make something really neat. that automatically builds itself. And I love that about MailChimp. Like that's why I have so many clients using it. In Mailerlite, you can create that same email lickety split right out of the box. It's going to look prettier, but the amount of customizing is not there at all. So like I do use it, but I had to do some very creative troubleshooting to get it to do what I wanted it to do. And I don't think everybody has that level of knowledge to get through to that. So out of the box, it's really easy and customizable. The user interface lets you customize your email easily in Mailerlite. But if you need something fancier, you're going to probably not use Mailerlite because MailChimp is going to do a better job.
Okay, that is an awesome way to summarize. Again, they're very, very comparable. It's going to be a preference on your part, but thinking ahead to what you need, that's a really strong place to distill it down, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Before we get into our rapid wrap up, please tell us where we can find you online.
Well, you can hang out with me on mayecreate.com. I hang out there, and that's MAYECREATE.com. And when I say hang out, I mean like my blogs are up there and the podcast. So I have 2 podcasts. I have the Nonprofit Marketing with Purpose podcast, and I have the Construction Marketing with Purpose podcast because, hey, we're segmenting our podcasts. As I was making them, I'm like, this is really weird. Like, I don't even feel like I'm talking to the people that I'm supposed to be talking to. So I'm just going to have to make them 2 separate things. And so everything is just May Create. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn and all those places. May Create with an E because my middle name is May. It's a family name. For generations, it's been May and it's MAYE. Yeah. So,
and to make it easy, I will make sure that we have these links in the show notes. And yeah, definitely go to the website, go to your blog, right? Because you did say that you created a blog post about this very discussion. So if you feel like you want the visuals and you want to read what we've talked about, definitely go there and check it out. I'll make sure to have that in the show notes.
Yep. With screenshots and comparison chart. I went crazy on the screenshots because I think you should see what it looks like. Like you need to see it. And if you don't want to have to set up the like trial account, you can just go out and look at what it looks like now as of 2022. It could change in like a week.
It could, but at least as of, the airing of this podcast episode, and I would expect nothing less from you to have so many screenshots. So thank you for that. All right, now let's get into the rapid wrap up and just fill in the blanks for me. Okay. A song that lifts my spirits, makes me dance is?
Oh, man. Well, Patty Griffin, Heavenly Day. Yeah, that one's so good.
Right. And what about a quote or a mantra that inspires me that I love to share?
Well, one that I live by is fail fast, fail forward.
I like that.
Yep. Hey,
I'm writing that one down, right? Exactly. It's a win or learn, people. Okay. A resource, a book or an app other than Mailerlite and MailChimp that's made my life better.
That is a good question. I don't know if I could say just one podcast, but just when I had my first child, like before I had her, I was just a voracious reader. I read, like, my husband would be like, how many books did you read this weekend? Because it's that insane, right? But then once I had my hands busy all the time, I discovered audiobooks and podcasts and all these things audio. And I'm a very audio learner. And so like if I'm going to go on a trip, I will listen to every podcast I can find about that place. So I just feel like knowing the way that you learn and then kind of working it into your life, and don't be afraid to listen to things that aren't even in any way related to you at all, that like if they overlap in the subject area that you're interested in, give it a whirl. You could learn some really amazing things. But yeah, I love the audiobooks and podcasts. So
oh, that's such a great suggestion. I love that. Okay. And last but definitely not least, what or whom are you grateful for today, Monica?
Wow. I would say I'm grateful for probably my friend Carrie today because she drove over to my house in all this snow. And we went on a snow walk this morning at 6 a.m. and she didn't even have to work. And so she got up early and drove to my house and we walked around the neighborhood in our snow boots for exercise.
Yeah. Shout out to Carrie. That's friendship right there.
She's pretty awesome.
I love that. Okay. Well, I am so grateful for you that we connected and that you were willing to come and share your tons of expertise with us today. Thank you, Monica, for shining your light in this world and for sharing it with us.
Anytime.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.